Why do 70% of retirees who move abroad end up failing? It's the dream, right? Sell your home, move somewhere warm, stretch your pension, live the good life. But for most, that dream quickly becomes a nightmare. In this video, I'll show you why so many retirees regret moving abroad, and the exact steps you can take to make sure your retirement story doesn't end the same way. Mistake number 1. Romanticizing the destination. This is, by far, one of the biggest traps retirees fall into. It all starts with a beautiful vacation. You visit a new place, maybe Spain, Portugal, Thailand, and you're blown away. The food is amazing, the sunsets are unreal, and the cost of dinner? A fraction of what you'd pay back home. You start imagining your new life there. Walking the beach every morning, sipping coffee at your favorite little cafe. No stress, no snow, no deadlines. It feels perfect. But here's the truth that no one wants to admit. Vacation life and everyday life are two very different things. When you're on vacation, everything feels easier. You're not dealing with local bureaucracy. You're not trying to figure out the health system or translate documents. You're not paying utility bills or navigating a rainy season stuck inside a small apartment. And you're definitely not feeling the ache of missing your grandkids during the holidays. The mistake here is assuming that the dream will last forever. That the way you felt during those magical 2 weeks is how you'll feel year-round. But living somewhere full-time changes your relationship with that place. You start to notice things. Cultural differences that were once charming can become frustrating. A relaxed pace of life suddenly feels like inefficiency. The beach is still there, but you're not on vacation anymore. So how do you avoid this? You test it. You live in that country as if you already moved there, but without the commitment. You rent a simple apartment in a regular neighborhood. Not a resort, not a fancy Airbnb. You use public transport, shop at the local grocery store, and try to speak the language, even if it's awkward. You go to the doctor for a checkup and see what that process feels like. You stay long enough to experience the boring days, the frustrating moments, even the bad weather. Because if you still love the place, then if it still feels right when it's not perfect, that's when you know it might work. Even better, try going during the off-season. If it's a beach town, visit in the winter when everything is closed and the crowds are gone. Talk to people who already live there, but not just the ones selling real estate or promoting the dream. Find the retirees who've been living there for a few years. Ask them what surprised them. Ask what went wrong. You'll learn more in one honest conversation than in 10 glossy travel blogs. And here's something simple you can do today. Join a few local expat Facebook groups. Just observe. Don't post right away. Read what people are saying, what they're struggling with. That alone can give you a real sense of what day-to-day life looks like when the honeymoon phase wears off. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever visited a place and thought, I could totally live here? Drop it in the comments. And if you actually did move, tell us. Did the reality match the fantasy? If this first point already has you thinking differently about your retirement plans, make sure to hit that like button. And subscribe because we've got more real talk coming up. And this next mistake? It's the one that drains retiree bank accounts faster than you'd believe. Mistake number 2. Underestimating the real cost of living. This is one of those mistakes that sneaks up on you slowly. And by the time you realize it, it's already eating into your savings. A lot of retirees look at average cost of living charts online, and they think, great, I can live in Mexico or the Philippines or Portugal for half of what I spend at home. And yes, on paper, that might be true. Rent is lower. Groceries might be cheaper. Healthcare might cost a fraction of what it does in the States. Sounds good in theory, right? But theory doesn't pay the surprise dentist bill. First, there's the expat premium. When you're new in town, you don't know how to get the best deals. You're probably not bargaining at the market or using local services the way residents do. You might prefer imported goods you're used to, like certain foods or hygiene products, which cost way more abroad. And if you don't speak the language yet, that can cost you too. You might end up paying extra for help navigating paperwork, housing, or even daily errands. Then there are the hidden costs, things you don't think about until you're living it. Currency exchange fees, trips back home to visit family, emergency medical expenses, visa renewals, local taxes you didn't know existed, a car repair in a country where parts take weeks to arrive. It adds up fast. And here's the real kicker. A lot of retirees assume they'll maintain the same budget they had at home. But the truth? Most end up spending more, especially in year 1. Why? Because it's still a new experience. You go out more. You travel around the region. You're still in vacation mode for months. which is totally understandable but dangerous if you're on a fixed income. So how do you avoid this mistake? Before you move, build a test budget based on actual numbers, not internet averages. Find expat forums or YouTube channels from people living in the exact city you're considering. Reach out and ask what they spend on rent, utilities, healthcare, and food. Not in general, be specific. What does a dental cleaning cost? How much do they pay for internet? How much is a taxi from the airport? Then add 20%. Seriously. Pad your budget with a buffer for all the little things that will absolutely come up. You don't want to be in a foreign country wondering if you can afford a trip to the doctor. Also, don't just focus on the cheap destinations. Cheap can sometimes mean unstable, poorly maintained infrastructure, or systems that will cost you in time, stress, or safety. Value matters more than just price, and if you can, live off your projected budget for at least 3 to 6 months before you move. Try to live as if you were already abroad, spending only what your new life would allow. It's a powerful reality check, and it can save you from blowing through your retirement savings in the first year. It's not about fear, it's about freedom. The freedom to stay, adapt, and thrive. And if this advice is helping you think more strategically about your move, go ahead and subscribe now. The next mistake on this list is one that too many people only discover when it's already too late, and it can turn your dream into a bureaucratic nightmare. Mistake number 3, ignoring visa and residency rules. This one has ended more retiree dreams than you might think. People assume that moving to a country is as simple as buying a plane ticket and renting an apartment, but it's not. Every country has its own rules about how long you can stay, what kind of visa you need, and whether or not you can access healthcare or open a bank account. Some retirees arrive on a tourist visa, fall in love with the place, and then they overstay. Or they bounce across borders every few months just to reset their stay. Not only is that exhausting, it's also risky. One border guard in a bad mood, and you could be denied entry or even banned from returning. Others go through the official channels, but they don't read the fine print. They assume that having enough money or owning property guarantees them a visa. It doesn't. Some countries require proof of income, background checks, private health insurance, or translations of every document, certified and notarized. Miss one piece, and your application might be rejected. So here's what to do. Start researching the residency requirements before you even choose your destination. Go directly to the official government immigration site. Don't rely on blogs alone. And if the process looks complicated, consider working with an immigration lawyer or consultant who specializes in retirees. Yes, it costs money, but it can save you months of frustration and even the risk of having to leave. Also, understand the difference between short-term visas and long-term residency. They are not the same. And if you eventually want permanent residency or citizenship, find out what that path looks like now, not 5 years down the line when it's too late to change course. Tell me in the comments, have you already looked into the visa process for a country you're considering? What's been the most confusing part? The next mistake is one that seems small until it starts eating away at your mental health. Mistake number 4, not preparing for the emotional toll. When people think about moving abroad, they focus on the practical stuff: money, housing, paperwork. But what often gets overlooked is the emotional side. And for many retirees, this is where things quietly fall apart. At first, everything feels exciting. New food, new routines, new scenery. But after the initial high fades, the reality of being far from home starts to settle in. Friends and family aren't just around the corner anymore. You miss birthdays, holidays, those spontaneous coffee catch-ups. You might start to feel disconnected, like you're living in a place where no one really knows you. And building new friendships in a foreign country isn't always easy, especially if there's a language barrier or cultural differences. You can feel like an outsider for months, even years. Now, this doesn't mean you shouldn't move abroad, but it does mean you need to plan for more than just logistics. Before you move, ask yourself, how will I build community? Are there expat groups in the area? Will I make an effort to learn the language, even just the basics? Am I open to connecting with locals, or do I expect to just recreate my old life in a new setting? One of the best things you can do is to visit your potential destination with this exact question in mind. Can I picture myself actually belonging here? Go to events, join a class, sit in the same cafe every day and start small conversations. See how it feels. Also, think about how you'll stay connected with loved ones back home. Will you visit often? Will they come to you? Or will you need to adjust to maintaining relationships from a distance? Loneliness doesn't show up overnight. but it can quietly wear down even the most beautiful retirement plan. So, let's hear it. What's your biggest fear when it comes to moving abroad? Is it the money, the logistics, or the possibility of feeling alone? Drop it in the comments. You're definitely not the only one thinking about it. And don't forget to subscribe. We've still got one more major mistake to cover, and it's the one that can leave you feeling trapped, stuck, and unable to move forward. Mistake number 5, buying property too soon. This is a tough one because it feels like the smart thing to do. You're thinking long-term, you're investing, you're putting down roots. But for so many retirees, buying property too early becomes a trap. Here's how it usually happens. You fall in love with a place. You've had a wonderful visit, or maybe even a few. You meet a friendly real estate agent. You see how cheap the prices are compared to back home, and you think, why rent when I can buy? It feels like a no-brainer. But here's the reality. Buying property in a foreign country is rarely as simple as it looks. The legal systems are different. Property laws can be confusing. Some countries restrict what foreigners can buy or require a local cosigner. And when something goes wrong, you don't have the same protections you'd have at home. Even more important, what if 6 months in, you realize the place isn't right for you? Maybe the weather isn't what you expected. Maybe healthcare access is limited. Maybe you just feel isolated. If you've already bought a home, suddenly you're not just dealing with disappointment. You're dealing with paperwork, agents, lawyers, and a financial burden that makes it harder to pivot. You end up feeling stuck in a place that no longer fits you, simply because leaving feels like admitting defeat or losing money. Here's the better approach. Rent first. Always. At least for the first year. Renting gives you flexibility. It gives you time to adjust, to explore other areas, and to understand the rhythm of local life in different seasons. And if you still love it after a year, and you've got a clear understanding of the legal side, then sure, start looking at buying. But do it from a place of stability, not emotion. You worked your whole life to afford this stage of life. Don't rush into something that could limit your freedom when you've finally earned it. So tell me, have you ever considered buying property abroad? Or maybe you already have? Share your experience in the comments. Your story could help someone avoid a costly mistake. Let's wrap it up with a quick recap, and I'll leave you with a few next steps to help you move forward with confidence. So let's quickly recap the 5 most common mistakes retirees make when moving abroad, and how you can avoid every single one of them. Number 1, romanticizing the destination. Don't confuse a great vacation with a livable reality. Spend time there first. Live like a local before you commit. Number 2, underestimating the true cost of living. Go beyond the online averages. Build a real budget and give yourself a financial buffer. Number 3, ignoring visa and residency rules. Do your research early, and if needed, get professional help. Don't risk your retirement on red tape. Number 4, overlooking the emotional side. Be honest with yourself about loneliness, homesickness, and how you'll stay connected to others. And number 5, buying property too soon. Rent first. Learn the area. Give yourself the freedom to adapt. If you've made it this far, you're already ahead of most people. Most retirees don't do this kind of planning until they've already run into problems. But you're here doing the work up front, and that's what makes the difference between regret and a retirement that actually works. Now, if you're wondering where to even start looking, I've got you covered. Check out my other video on the top retirement destinations abroad. It's packed with spots that are not just beautiful, but also affordable, expat-friendly, and built for long-term living. I'll link it right here on the screen and in the description below. And hey, if you got value from this video, give it a like. It really helps more people find this content. Subscribe if you haven't yet, and drop a comment below with your thoughts. Are you planning to retire abroad? What's your biggest worry or your biggest dream? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.